A nameless narrator drifts through war-scarred Europe, collecting memories like weapons. Beat. Each vignette in Jerzy Kosinski's Steps is a chilling step deeper into the human psyche. 1. A mosaic of movement, Kosinski's Fragmented Road. Imagine smashing a mirror and studying each shard for clues about the whole face behind it. Beat. That experience captures the emphasis, disjointed structure of steps. The book unfolds as terse, self-contained tales, sometimes a paragraph, sometimes a few pages, spoken by a single, unnamed voice. Beat. He moves from a brutal childhood in an occupied Polish village to the grey anonymity of post-war cities, then on to the glittering promise of America. There are no chapter titles and almost no dates. Kosinski wants us to feel untethered, blown sideways by history's gales. Beat. Why tell the story this way? First, because the narrator's life truly is a collage of flight. War, revolution, and migration have erased borders, alliances, even family names. Each episode freezes a moment when power tilts, when a soldier corners a peasant girl, when an immigrant negotiates with a customs officer, when a tourist exploits a guide. Beat. The gaps between stories replicate the silences of trauma. What cannot be said drops away, leaving stark action. Second, Kosinski weaponizes brevity. Like hard flashes from a strobe, each vignette dazzles and unsettles. The reader never grows numb. Instead, they're forced to reset after every shock. Beat. Critics called this technique brutal. Admirers called it honest. Either way, the style mirrors the emotional dissociation of survival. Beat. Underneath the shards runs a single cold current. Motion is both escape and entrapment. The narrator travels, yet carries his inner void wherever he lands. Beat. Planes, trains, horse-drawn carts, modes of transit pile up, but none deliver belonging. By keeping us off balance, Kosinski teaches us to listen not for continuity, but for the clicking of moral tripwires, the tiny shifts that reveal who holds power at any given second. Beat. When the narrator finally reaches America, he describes it as a landscape of surfaces: neon, chrome, skyscraper glass. The fragments do not fuse, they only multiply. Beat. That is the dark joke of Steps. In a world built on displacement, the quest for unity is itself a mirage. 2. Brutality as currency, power, violence, survival. From the opening pages, violence in Steps feels less like an event than a weather system, something you breathe, swallow, exhale. Beat. Acts of cruelty erupt without warning. A school teacher forces two boys to whip each other. A prisoner gnaws bread soaked in urine. A gang of partisans ties a woman to a tree as bait. Each scene is narrated with surgical calm, the emphasis clinical tone sharpening every cut. Beat. Kosinski's narrator portrays violence as a transactional language. Whoever can impose pain establishes hierarchy. In the countryside, German officers trade cigarettes for local girls. In urban basements, black marketeers barter forged papers for sexual favors. Beat. The child who dared to memorize poetry yesterday becomes the executioner's accomplice today, because survival demands pliancy. Beat. The author condemns no one outright, but exposes everyone as both victim and perpetrator depending on the hour. A chilling pattern emerges. Moments of tenderness mutate into aggression. A horseback ride under moonlight ends with a friend's betrayal. A shared bath spirals into domination games. Beat. The message is less about individual wickedness than about systems that reward brutality. The narrator learns that to be passive is to vanish. Therefore, he studies how to inflict just enough harm to signal that he, too, can deal in terror. Beat. Yet brutality also deadens sensation. After witnessing a public flogging, the narrator reports feeling nothing, no pity, no outrage, only a cool curiosity about technique. Beat. Readers may recoil, but Kosinski implicates us. By turning pages, we too consume atrocity as story. Beat. Power in steps is ultimately portable. The same methods used to coerce peasants in wartime Poland reappear in New York boardrooms, cocktail parties, and government offices. Beat. A diplomat humiliates his aide over pronunciation. A sports coach breaks an athlete's spirit to secure a win. The narrator notes these echoes with almost scholarly detachment, as if building a catalogue of human predation. Beat. What, then, does survival cost? The novel suggests it demands amputating empathy piece by piece. The survivor becomes a connoisseur of cruelty, forever scanning for the next pressure point, because in Kosinski's universe, power is the only stable currency, and violence is its small change. Beat. 3. Eros and estrangement, the body as battlefield. If violence is the overt grammar of steps, sexuality is its murmuring subtext, an equally potent arena for conquest. Beat. The narrator's erotic encounters are numerous, graphic, and stripped of romance. He records them the way a scientist logs specimens. Beat. Yet each scene exposes how the body can be weapon, shield, or ransom. The hotel maid who offers herself for a night seeks protection. The American socialite who demands foreign obscenities wants an exotic thrill. Beat. Kosinski threads desire and danger so tightly that pleasure borders on suffocation. Beat. A lover might whisper endearments one moment, then test the edge of a knife against skin the next. This fusion of lust and fear evokes what scholars call the postwar erotics of death, a craving for sensation intense enough to prove one is still alive amid ruins. Beat. But the book also interrogates alienation. The narrator often observes his own body from a distance, noting its responses as if they belonged to someone else. He reports climax the way one reports rainfall, a fact, devoid of sentiment. Beat. Such detachment underscores how war and migration fracture not only communities, but also selfhood. Beat. In one memorable vignette, the narrator watches a couple making love in a snow-covered forest clearing. Rather than join or withdraw, he times their movements to the rhythm of his heartbeat, treating the scene as theatre. Beat. We realize he's permanently exiled from ordinary intimacy. Voyeurism is safer than participation. Beat. A recurring motif is the barter of language for touch. Women ask him to describe distant battlefields or speak in his native tongue as foreplay. He complies, aware that his accent renders him both exotic and expendable. Beat. Words become aphrodisiacs, then dissolve, leaving only the raw negotiations of flesh. Beat. The emphasis estrangement is total. After each liaison, the narrator walks away unchanged, often forgetting names, sometimes stealing small tokens, curl of hair, passport photo, more for record keeping than sentiment. Beat. Kosinski implies that without emotional anchorage, sexuality empties into ritual, its original promise of union inverted into confirmation of solitude. 4. Masks, tongues, and the illusion of arrival. Kosinski famously spoke multiple languages and reinvented his biography after coming to America. Beat. Steps fictionalizes that chameleon impulse. The narrator adopts new accents, alters birth dates, fabricates resumes, all with the fluency of a con artist. To him, identity is not birthright, but toolkit. Beat. Every new city triggers a name change. Polish diminutive in Krakow, Russian patronymic in Kiev, anglicized syllables at the US Embassy. He tests each alias like a tailor fitting suits, discarding any that chafe. Beat. Language itself becomes camouflage, a way to slip past guards, literal and figurative. Beat. Yet masks create their own prisons. After years of code switching, the narrator can no longer recall his mother's voice or father's lullabies. Beat. Homeland survives only in fragmented sensation: the smell of rye bread, the creak of wooden cartwheels, the flash of emphasis cinders from a burning barn. These sensory ghosts haunt him more fiercely in America, where the abundance of choices mocks his inner vacancy. Beat. The supposed promised land offers material comfort but no absolution. At embassy receptions, he recites scripted jokes. In corporate hallways, he rehearses motivational slogans. Beat. Each performance earns applause, yet the applause feels like rainfall on a wax mask, irrelevant to the face beneath. Beat. One late vignette crystallizes the theme. Invited to a suburban Thanksgiving, the narrator studies the ritual of carving turkey with the intensity of a spy decoding enemy signals. Beat. He copies gestures, times his laughter, samples cranberry sauce, but feels as remote as when he crouched in a wartime hayloft. His hosts comment on his flawless English, unaware of the code switches swirling inside his skull. Beat. Kosinski closes the novel without closure. The final lines describe the narrator boarding another plane, destination withheld. The reader hears the boarding call, the hum of engines, the click of seatbelts, then silence. Beat. We are left to ponder whether any arrival is possible for someone who lives through perpetual reinvention. Perhaps, the book whispers, the last mask is the one we craft for ourselves when we claim to have a self at all.